Hey everybody, hope you had a great trading day. So what we're going to do in this video is run through about 20 names that were fairly actionable today and did fairly well. We're going to cover those and we're going to talk about some of the underlying themes that are going on this week. So let's just start. And I just want to go through this real quick. Everything's going to be in alphabetical order. So I got asked a couple times about this one today and I try to keep it actionable, and this is pretty actionable, but not for wanting to be in it. So let's just go through this. Here's your downward trend line. This is ATVI, symbol's right up here. And now you can see our downward trend line, right? So you can see that. Now look how you fell off here, okay? I don't know if this was an earnings event. It wasn't. So we just fell off here, couldn't get above this support line, tried to rally. Now, what I really want to point out is just what happened today. ATVI just simply formed from here to here and encompassed this other bar, which essentially, as we know from the candlestick videos that we watched, it is a bearish engulfing position. You don't want to be in that. Now, the other issue that you have going for you is you have a rising wedge, okay? You have a rising wedge, and you're still in this bear flag formation. So I would not be in this. I'd be very, very cautious here. So to me, this is setting up to break that level with that frozen rope, right? That usually comes down after these rising channels. And you look like, to me, like you're heading for a retest of about this level, 77.80. So just keep that in mind. This is not something I would go near. I was asked a lot about it, so people must be looking at it, trying to bottom fish. And it's just not something that I would personally go near. I mean, you sliced a lot of levels, so I would avoid this. BTCM, we're talking about what's going on out there right now, and you're seeing a lot of movement in the crypto names. So if you take a look at what's going on here with Bitcoin, so you'll start seeing Bitcoin trying to break out here a little bit, right? And maybe Bitcoin does break out. Right? Kind of looks like it's going to here out of the flag. And if it does, it can go higher. And if it, by going higher, it could go up to, this, let's say this 58,000, just for the sake of argument. The question becomes, what is that going to do for this stock? Well, what would be concerning to me, closed at 742, we're trading at 785 right now. What would be concerning to me is the fact that Bitcoin is going higher, and these really aren't doing that anymore, are they? Right? They're kind of just bouncing around. So as Bitcoin goes higher, this mining company is not going higher. That means it has a weak relative strength in regards to the movement of Bitcoin. That would be concerning to me. So, we'll see what happens here with it. Now, earnings are coming out on the 17th, which is next week, and maybe you get some action on it, but I'd be cautious here. CELH is one that we are in from the newsletter. And if you don't get the newsletter, there's a free edition that comes out every Wednesday. It's updates to what we're doing with the full newsletter. And I think it's a great way to get it and kind of understand what we really do. But in regards to the trade and where you're at, you're kind of bouncing around here after hours. Look. Let me just get rid of this one line. I don't really want VWAP on here. There's no reason for it. So look, you had earnings. You came in. You formed this long-legged doji, and now you have another inside day. You went to the 8-day, and you rejected. Okay? And now you've sold back down through the 17 level, and this is where you're at. I'm very curious where we closed at exactly after hours. So yeah, I mean, that's really where you're at after hours. So it's not great. You should have seen more of a move in it, but we didn't. And now you have to be concerned about this. So now I'm getting concerned about this, right? Because you had a trend line here. See this trend line? So we can get rid of this for now. And this is CELH. But you see how you're riding this trend line right here? And you're staying above it, but you keep breaking it. And usually if you're doing that, you're setting up to come in. So I don't know if this is a sell the news event yet or not, but from a newsletter standpoint, with where our stop is and where it closed, we'll be out on the newsletter. I have to be. Just the way the newsletter works, I make sure that, if it closes at the end, we're out, and then we'll just have to look for another entry. But I do like it long term. It's just not acting the way that I would want it to act right now. I thought earnings were great, but maybe it's ahead of itself, so maybe it needs a little more time, before it takes off here again. So I wouldn't be chasing it. Now, if you look at the weekly, the weekly doesn't look bad. I mean, we had a real shot to get to 89 here, and it's just not doing it. You broke out, and you just came right back down. So I would avoid it until we figure out what's going on. So this one was really interesting, and I'm going to use the weekly. So this came out with, from what I gathered, not great data. In other words, I don't think a lot of people, I'll just throw the name up here, I don't think a lot of people were excited with Dash's earnings, right? So that's kind of how I viewed it, right? So let me just show you this, and we're going to put that in right there, okay? So sometimes I like doing that, just extending it, seeing if there's other little areas where maybe it was acting as support before, and you can kind of see where it was, testing and not breaking. Resistance flips to what? Support, right? Breaks it, becomes resistance, Now what does this become? 188.47 is your support line. So if you were to play this, 188.47 is where I would draw support. Now, when you come out with earnings like this and they're not great, and they're not really lighting the world on fire, the most important thing to do is to realize that and understand that negative news or news driving a stock price up is about as bullish of a sign as that you're going to see. Now, I have no position in this. This is one I've traded on and off, and all it's done is cause me aggravation, to be quite honest with you. I just haven't gotten into the rhythm of how this one trades. And as we're aware, and I say this a lot, all stocks have personalities. Not that the stock itself does, but they trade like the people that trade them, right? So that should make sense, that they're going to behave how the people trade the stock. Everybody trades differently. 181 to 194 was today. Look at this day. It was a beautiful setup. Let me get rid of these indicators. So here you are. You open down. Everyone's like, I knew it was going to sell down, right? Came right to here, tested it, didn't break. After your half hour, what happens? It breaks out. Once you broke that level, that was it. You had a shot at a gap fill. You have a gap fill. Not only does it gap fill, but it keeps going. It kept going. Then we took out this nasty long red bar at the end of the day. 15 minutes left. And look at the volume spike at the end of the day. And we know what these end of the day volume spikes are. They're usually institutions that are buying and they don't want you to see. So let's go through this. So now I have this bar that is respecting the 21-day through the 8-day, right? Tested and respected it, closed at the all-time, or closed at the high. I don't think that's an all-time high close, no. Closed at the high of the day and encapsulated this bar. And my volume's increasing. So this is setting up to move. This is setting up to go higher. I don't know how bad the earnings were. It wasn't on my radar to watch this one and watch the earnings. So but 195.45. That's what you're looking for. And I think that you'll do exceptionally well with this if you can get in and stay in, right? Like, it has a lot of these nasty wicks. So you have to kind of watch that. But that's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid move. So DDD was one that I've been talking about. We broke out here and we failed. And when you fail these lines, when you fail these downward trend lines, you just have to sit on your hands and wait. And there's people that are in the community, we're asking over and over again, is it time to buy it? Because I do think there's another trade coming here. It's definitely just not now. So we ran up, and then you just have completely closed. And what I think you're going to do is I think you're going to completely close the gap. So where I would like this to get to, and I think it does get to, is I think it does get to the, I think it does get to that 28.32 line. If I was a betting person, which I am, I think that's where we're heading. So let's just see how that plays out. But now look at this. just to put it in perspective, right? I mean, is that something that you would look at and go, I need to buy that? This is the weekly on DDD. You wouldn't look at this and go, I need to get into this, right? As we're aware, and I'll link it again, I also put the candlestick video in the community. Some people say they can't find it at the end of the video, but it's definitely worth watching, candlesticks that work. But you see what I'm saying? Look at this. Like, this is exactly what you're looking for. So let's see how it plays out, but this is really what you want. You want to stay away from it until it figures out what it wants to do. You know, this could flip and break this low, and I could be wrong, right? And we're just not going to know until it gets there. So we're best doing nothing. If you don't know, you don't do anything. So Disney, you know, this was one that was kind of disappointing. I'm not going to lie. I had it on my radar today to break out and to run. And look how you started the day. Look where you opened, right? I mean, you opened. Let me just give you the open. There's your open. I mean, you opened perfectly. Ran up, looked like you were going to go, reversed, and then came down and came all the way down to support. You gap filled to here, but it looks like you were going to gap fill all the way back down and give up the entire gain. Now, that's kind of crazy, right? And let's look at that off the open. Yeah, there's your one big bar, and then you broke it, tried to rally, and you never came back from it, did you? So what do you do now with that? There's not a lot to say or do here. You know, you're probably going back down to here to fill the gap. And now you have this nasty red bar you have to contend with. So, I mean, they usually don't go very well, right? Here's one. Here's one you try to get above, rolls, right? When you find them, here's what happens, right? Tries to get up, does get up here. So I'd be really cautious here. Somebody wanted out of this, and you can see the volume here. But that's not even like a spike like this that would be enough that would get me to say, hey, this is something that you don't want to be in. Or sometimes you see such big selling that you get capitulation and you want to be a buyer, right? So I feel that way with Micron. So I'll give a quick example of that. So, but like Micron, like I feel that this could be bottoming. And the reason, one of the key reasons I feel that it could be bottoming, and just disclaimer, I have a position that I started in this today. One of the reasons I feel it can be bottoming is look at my average daily volume of 72 million on news, which I will refer to as absolute nonsense. So, and look at this. Okay. When was the last time that this happened? That we had relative volume in this name like this. Okay. So I'm going back 2 years and we don't have anything. So that puts it in the perspective of when you see a movement like this, why it's important. And if everybody's selling and everybody's out, there's no one left to sell, right? Then you just have, you start having demand. Now, whether this holds or not, you know, anybody's guess. But to me, it makes perfect sense to take the risk here. And it's a very simple trade. I mean, if you can use the low of the day here and see how it plays out. But to me, I don't have that kind of panic here, right? I have some selling, but I don't even have
market data connection
the average daily volume. Like, look here. So let's just consider that for a moment. And what I would do, frankly, is I would just sit, watch, and wait. I wouldn't do anything with this. You know, you're probably going right back down into the middle of this grouping. I mean, that's kind of how Disney's trading right now, isn't it? You know, and I'll keep remembering to put these symbols up in here. So, and put this up in here. So, docs, you know, this was one the other day, it broke out. Just throw this in there, okay? So you see how the difference, where you find out where your levels are if you're trading it post and pre-data, right? So we broke this and then we just went. But now you're just basing a little bit. There's really nothing wrong with what it's doing. Let me just show it this way. There's nothing wrong with the doji up here. I mean, you just broke out, right? I mean, you literally just broke out. So, I mean, here's your trend line. All right, here's your upper trend line. You flip the trend line. Isn't that crazy how that works? And you just happen to open right on top of that trend line. and go. So until you break this trend line, I don't see a problem here. I like the name. I think this could work. I like how the volume's increasing. I think that's good. I think that's really good stuff to see. So eBay, probably one of the best days eBay's had in a long, long time. If we go back and take a look, we very rarely have a day like this on eBay anymore. You moved a solid, from 68 to 74 here. I mean, that's a pretty big move. And, it's so interesting, too, because here's earnings, and then these moves have been happening 1 or 2 days later. So it's been happening a lot. But in regards to eBay, that's a solid move. Now, whether that move continues or not is going to be the reason why you would buy it, right? So the first thing you're going to have to contend with is that you have a trend line that's right up here. So when you look at this trend line, that's really where you're getting to, 75, 76. So you're probably not really that interested until you flip that level, unless you're trying to make a point, right? If you're trying to make a point or two, it's probably there, okay? But you'd have to get above that 74.15, which with this kind of volume and the way that this is accelerating, I fully expect that to continue. I mean, this is perfect. I mean, you literally open at the low and close at the high. That's as perfect as you can get for a bar. So, and let's take a look at this on the weekly since we can now on eBay. And that's great. I mean, you have a bullish engulfing here. You have higher than weekly average daily volume, and you're closing at an all-time high. Is this an all-time? I don't know if this is an all-time high or not. I have to go back 20 years, right, and just see where you're at in 2000. Yeah, I mean, you're at an all-time high. So you have an all-time high close on it. So, I mean, it's definitely something to consider. And isn't that interesting? $3 in 08 when we came in. But so really what you have to do now is just kind of take a look at it and make a decision if you want to play it here or wait for the breakout. You can wait for the breakout, but look, you're getting to here. So you need more. You need a bigger push. So FIGS, well, FIGS is pretty interesting here. Anything that you come down that's new, right? And which is exactly what you did. Let me just show this. Pardon me. So see that after hours what happened? See where you're at here? Okay. Now, in regards to this, what was the event? It was earnings. So in other words, we come up with earnings, we go up, we open down here after earnings at 38, right? So earnings are announced. Everyone thinks it's bad. We open down here at 38. What do? We go up all day. Okay, that's really very important. I would like it if we could close above this wick over here, but we seem to have an issue with it, right? 42.65, 42.65, and here we are again talking about 42.65. So let's see if we can get through that a little bit. But I like this, and I really like the increase. And I bet you there was buying in this. Yeah, I mean, like, look at this. We could actually use a 15-minute on this. It'll be cleaner. Let me get rid of these indicators. And look, I mean, there's your opening range trade, right? I mean, it's really
Market
that
data
simple.
Connection lost.
That's your opening range. And what happens? It breaks out, and that was it. Breaks and goes and fills. Now we did a fill, it overextended the fill and started hitting these support or resistance levels that we're talking about. So what do you do now with it? What would you do now with FIGS? Well,
market data connection.
I need to close over 42.65 before I would do anything. And then the next level that you're probably getting to after that close, candidly, is probably up here, 46.88. So I would wait and see that you get that kind of close and see it push, and then you're basically heading up through this bar and then up to here would be your next level. FXLV. So F45 training holdings. So this is a new issue. And what I like to do with new issues is just explain to people that the most important thing you can do is draw 4 lines on your first daily average bar. And what you'll find is that those 4 lines will give you a really good synopsis on what's going on, right? Because this is the low where the investment bank would what? Okay? This is where they would have to come out and support it. This is the spot where the investment bank is selling its shares. Okay, I mean, that's pretty clear if you know what an investment bank does when they go public, or what the institutions are doing and how the game flow is. This is where they opened the stock, where they saw the order flow, and this is how you came down. So you can kind of see how those levels exist. Now, once you draw those levels, you can see which one is the most dominant, right? The most dominant of those levels that has been acting like support and resistance has really been what? The 1620. Okay, so why would I say that? Well, we reject here, you reject here, you reject here, you flip it, then we flip down under it, right? And that becomes resistance. Resistance flips again, becomes support, right? So this 1620 is something that you need to reckon with. So if you really wanted to buy this, closing below this 1620 should probably have you out. Other than that, you can give it a shot. I mean, you need to get above that line, 1735. But what you could do is just wait for 1775, right? We already know you have a seller up here. You know you have a seller up here. So let's see if he's still there, or she, or still there. You know, that's what I would do if I wanted to be in that name. So this is one I've been watching, and I've been getting a lot of questions. Actually, mostly questions are coming on this from the community, which is kind of interesting. I'm not really getting them on Twitter, but they are right. This is breaking out, and it looks to me like it's going to continue to break out. So we're going to get into this. So this is our next level. This is what we were looking for to get above this wick and clear it, and we did, and it just kept going. Now look at these indicators. See how they're crossing over and over again? You have a cross here. Your 21 crosses your 50. Your 8 crosses your 21. Your 8 crosses your 50. Your 21 crosses your 200. Right? The 50 is about to cross the 200. For those that know that, it's called a golden cross. They're pretty rare, and when they happen, you should pay attention to them. This could trade up, come back down, but this is going higher. This is going higher. So let's see how this continues. But to me, I think it's going higher. So our next stop is going to be this 47 and a quarter level, and then we're going to go to 54. So if you get above 47 and a quarter, this 54 level should probably act like a magnet. So, and you can kind of see what's going on here. This makes it so much cleaner. That's why I love looking at weeklies. You can kind of see certain levels and where you're at, right? And to put it in perspective, because this is a large cap fund by Grayscale, digital currencies, or cryptocurrencies. But what's interesting about this is I have to look at a breakdown of the holdings. What's interesting is this was the spike, right? And these indexes these stocks really aren't back to where they were before, but this is moving much higher than it was before, right? So it's actually probably outperforming right now. It's actually it's outperforming. So if you look at here, I'll show you what I mean. Or we can just use the trough, June 21st. Look. Okay, you're up 161%. You're up 66% on Bitcoin. So that kind of puts it in perspective, right? So you can see that. What's interesting about that is, what is that telling us? That's telling us that you're seeing more deal flow into what? Different cryptocurrencies. That's kind of interesting. Anyway, 46, 47, flip the 47, that 47 line, 47 and a quarter we were talking about, and you can head to this 54 on this GDLC. I do like this a lot. I think it's a great way to play these names because you're buying the group, and frankly, you have less risk because you're diversified and you're outperforming. I mean, that's kind of crazy how you're outperforming. GRWG. So we came out with earnings and they were a disaster, and I just wanted to cover this. Okay, you come out with earnings, they were an absolute disaster, unmitigated. Okay, I mean, I don't get it. I didn't think it was that bad, but the way the stock acted was a disaster. The next day, we open at the high of the day, just a little bit above our close. So you think you might have a shot, and then you come straight down and you close at 31. I would not go near this. Okay. I've broken the 21, the 8, the 200. They're all rolling. This trend line that we left in, which was our long-term downward trend line, right? Look at this. You better hold here, because if not, there's a whole other level of pain there. So I would not go near this. I would avoid this. This still may be a short the way it's acting. So, I mean, you're just, usually if you get a huge volume spike like this, you might see it start to bottom like we pointed at Micron. This is not doing that. HAYW. So look at this. There's your level. Okay. Now, what we're looking for is for this to try to get up to here at $24. So you need to start seeing this move. I wouldn't be in a huge hurry here. The one benefit of this is that you're breaking up and you're above the 8-day. Other than that, this is not something that I'd be rushing into right now. I'd hold off. HMHC. So here's your earnings date. Let me throw the symbol up on this one. This is kind of interesting. As always, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, because what we go over is extremely timely, and we do live shows. And really the only way to be notified of the live shows is to subscribe to the channel. So 1403, say you broke above that. Volume's not great, but look at that break. That's what you're looking for. So there's really not much more to say. I mean, this chart's beautiful. It's just going straight up. Earnings goes up. Now this is interesting, and I'll just throw this out there. I've been doing this a while, and see this? See how you lost 67 cents? You keep losing money, right? And now you're making money. The first quarter where this starts to happen, that's when this can really start taking off, because there are people that may be interested in the stock that are simply not going to buy it until it makes money. They're just not. So that's very interesting. And you could see it get through this 14 and, 17, 18, right? Now you're heading up to here, $21, $22. I mean, this could go. This could really move. I like that name. NUE, probably the best week it's ever had besides, that other week, right here, where it just crushed. Hold on one second. Let's get rid of this. This is when we were looking at bear flags, and we'll get rid of this. We can get rid of all these horizontal lines, actually. So really all you're doing is just trending, holding, and going. And every day you're hitting a new high and closing at a new high. There's really nothing to do here. Stay with it if you're in this. Now, the issue that you're going to run into, and you can see it here, is you're getting overextended. And that just puts you at risk for what? If they come out and don't do the infrastructure, or after the infrastructure, it sells down. That's usually what happens with some of these trades, right? They sell down after the news. So, I'm not chasing this here now. I mean, I put this one in the newsletter, and I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, it's pretty much following along. I had to wait for an hourly confirmation on one portion, and it's doing what it needs to do, and it gets us exposure to the space. But I'm not in a big hurry to add more and more of these, because I'm relying and we're relying on political discourse, and that does not seem like the best way to be managing when it can change on a dime. So I just really want to talk about this for a minute. I got asked a lot about this today. Yesterday in the newsletter, the one thing that I kept pointing out, for those of you that get the tri-weekly newsletter, look, I was trying to point this out yesterday, and I don't know how eloquent I was, but see how there's this wedge right here. See how you got to the 21 day and you held. See how the doji kicked in, right? And now look, now we flipped the wedge line and we're setting up for next week. What events are next week? Okay, now The 18th, what's coming out? Earnings. So this is getting very interesting to me. I'll say it's getting very interesting. This could really run. This is setting up with a base from back to here since July, right? 6 weeks, 8 weeks base going into earnings. I don't see how their earnings are not going to be stellar. Now, that doesn't mean the stock goes up. Stocks do go down on good earnings just because they've gone up so much. But we really haven't ran, right? Like, it's not like we're up here and we just kept going. We've pulled back down, based. So we have a base to come out of that earnings on. And I think that we could see that. And I just want to point this out as well. SOXL, very similar, right? Here's your wedge line. You can see how we're trying to hold on here. And just to kind of look at this for a moment so you can understand the whole picture, okay? Here to here, it's not really a bullish engulfing, but we opened at the low, closed at the high. I'd like to see follow through on Monday, Tuesday, and I think you're going to. I think you're going to see buying in the index before NVIDIA. I really do. I think that this is going to go. So let's see how that plays out. ROKU, it's really decision time. This was just an enormous disappointment, but this really boils down to something today that, I really want to point out to people. We could throw out ideas to each other all day long. How we trade those ideas is on us, right? So if I present an idea, the execution of the idea, I could be right, and it could do exactly what I think it's going to do. But someone could either, one, make more money or make money where you lose money on the idea because your process is different than theirs, right? Even if you don't have a process, you have a process. You just don't know what it is. So, but you definitely do, whether it's fear or greed, whatever, it exists. And the reason I'm bringing this up is it's very important to have a process, because if you don't, and your whole thought process here, right, was I'm going to hold it because they're going to be dominant and they're going to be in every single phone. They're going to be in every single TV. They're going to China, whatever your thought process is with ROKU. And I love this stock. I do. Okay. I think it's a great company. I think it's going to be one of those names that we're going to be saying, like we say Google, right? That doesn't mean that it can't go down. So what I would point out is from this point on, if you didn't have a process, and your goal was, oh, this is what they do, and I'm just going to hang on, okay? You lost 27% in 2 weeks on your investment. If you're leveraged, which a lot of people are when they're starting out and they're beginners, you just lost over 60% of your account if you're at 2 to 1, okay? So one trade because you don't have a stop in place. And now you're at the 200 hoping that it holds, right? Where I'm on the other side going, geez, I hope this breaks down and really gets ugly, and I can get some kind of waterfall event that scares everybody out of it. Okay, different mentality, same stock, different movement. Just think like that. And candidly with this, what do you do here? Absolutely nothing. You wait and see if it confirms here. Now, we've done this before, but since this huge run that we've had, right, we've never closed under it. Okay, so today was the first day that we've closed under that 200-day since back here, right? And over a year. It's not great news. And you're at the low. So see what happens. It needs to start holding here. They need to defend it. And if they don't defend it, it's going to be an issue. It really is. So let's see here. And let's look at this. 46.72. So what a shame. So I had such high hopes for it too, because it was just so beautiful, right? Here's your cup. Here's your handle. I mean, it was just perfect. But this is what we got. So this is why I try when people say, what do you think is going to happen? I can give targets, but frankly, none of us know. We think we know, but we don't know. And that's why you need a process. So here's a great example. So today, this was one that we were trading in the community, and I'm sure a lot of people were trading around. And no, this isn't even pre and post data. This is just what happened today. So this was yesterday, and the news was great, and everybody was rosy. And stocks going to the moon. FDA approval, they come out, they issue a statement saying, and that was up here when they issued the statement. We can go look at this chart. This is why you have to have a process. And people could say, well, what difference did it make if I had a process or not? Well, the difference in the process was if you're up a certain percentage, you may have sold something. Your process might be when I'm up 20%, I sell 20% and my stop gets moved to break even. Now that wouldn't have precluded this move, right? But it may have precluded you saving, right, a certain percentage that offsets this loss. So you're always trying to figure out how to protect your capital. Now, in regards to this, what we're going to have to see what happens with this particular name. But the reason I bring this up is anything can happen. It can always get worse than you think it can get, right? People are in this thinking, oh, worst case scenario, it's going to go back to its base, $3. No, it opened at 70 cents after being halted. It can always get worse than you think. It could have opened even lower, right? And then what are you going to do? You know, and frankly, when you open that low, a lot of people are like, for lack of a better term, they're like, screw it. I'll go to zero with it before you're getting my stock at 70 cents after $6. And believe me, I've been there. I've been there and I've done it. But, you know, with something like this, you know, this presented opportunity, same stock, presented opportunity. If you're able to buy in here, and now we have the conference call, they're going to be able to resubmit this apparently. And we have a conference call coming. That conference call is Monday. They say one or two positive things and people go, I have a $2 option on this thing getting back to 5 or going to 1, right? So I'm going to risk $1 for the possibility of making 4 or 5. I will do that all day long. Okay. So, and just even if it runs up back to 4, you have a double. So you're still going to see interest in that name. And I actually think you're going to see interest in this name up to 8 o'clock tonight. I actually think you're going to just see people just start picking at it. Frankly, I know it came down a little bit, but I just a sense that people are going to be like, because the conference call I think is pre-market Monday, so I think you're going to see that. It's kind of going to be interesting. So 131.42. I love those like little biotech stories like that. I rarely trade them because they're just, you know, they're so illiquid, but I just love those stories. So Unity, look. Excellent earnings, broke through the level we talked about, right? 122.80, kept going, closed at the high of the day. We're on target for 131.42. That's what we've been looking for, and I think you're there. So I think it can happen. Now, I mean, there's nothing but just grinding higher. Volume increasing all day long. It's doing everything right. So UPST's one that we've been in for a while. And I just want to point this out. So just to point this out, and this is what I'm saying, like, this is a great one to end with. Don't have preconceived notions about what you think is going to happen, right? Try not to do that, because when you have those, it doesn't make you fluid. You tie your ego to it. We all do it. It's got to go up because I'm in it. I have to be right. I got asked today about like my percentages of being right, and I have to respond to it. And I'm just going to leave it out there and say, if you have the right money management principles and you're right 50% of the time, you can make an absolute killing doing this. Okay. The goal is to be in the winners and let the winners run and keep going. And when you know you have a loser, to get out, right? So very simple math to put into perspective. If every loser is $1 and every winner is 5, okay, I only need one winner out of 5 to get to where I need to get to break even. So once you increase that to 25%, 35%, you start looking at the leverage of that. That's how these people get huge equity curves. Not that they're buying the right stock and leaving it on forever, but they're in a stock and they're letting the winners run. And that's a really very powerful distinction that people need to get to wrap around their head. It's not about being right in every trade. Nobody's right. Someone tells you they have a 90% proficiency rating, or 90% of the time I'm right. Don't walk away from them, run screaming, because it's just not accurate. Ask them for audited financials and watch how the story changes. So it's just not realistic to think that you're going to do something like 90% over a 12-month period. It isn't. It might be realistic if you do 10 trades and then you're done for the year. But if you're trading and you're a trader, it's just not realistic at all. So what I wanted to talk about was, this is where I opened after earnings. And then this is what happened after earnings. And this is what I did about it after earnings to kind of put this in perspective. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these indicators and just point this out. So I formed this wedge. I shorted it here and bought puts. Okay. I figured if we're going to break here, we're going to gap fill, right? Very similar to what Disney did today, right? So if you go here and you see something similar, just to kind of put it in perspective to where my thought was, we're going to break here, right? And then we're going to go and fill that gap. That's what I expected to happen. Could easily have happened, right? Disney's quarter was amazing. UPST's quarter was amazing. So, and they both opened up. Now, as soon as we broke the wedge line and I got that pop, I'm like, okay, I may have an issue, right? So in other words, I'm letting the stock tell me whether or not I have an issue. Then I get over this level. That was it. I'm out. Boom. Okay. All of a sudden, when we're in the community and we're talking about it, if you go and look for those that are in the community versus those that aren't, I'll just come out with it all anyway. At 166, if you go look at the notes that are out there in the observation, I'm like, this next resistance 166, next resistance 169. And I'm looking at it and going, do I really want to buy this here if they're being shorted here? And the answer to me was no. Where I want to buy it is if I get above this level, right? So I got above that level and I couldn't move fast enough. I literally couldn't move into the stock fast enough. And that's when we came out and we put it in the newsletter, right? 172, obviously this stop's going to get raised, target 225. I didn't think we'd be, 20 points away from it in, 3 days, but here we are. So there's nothing to do with this. If you want to sell this because you're up 20 points, 30 points, sell it. It's not a big deal. And as long as your next 4 winners or 4 trades are under $5 losses, you've made a little bit of money. And I think that's how you have to look at this a little bit. Now, let's just get back to this and go, well, what do you do with this stock? Well, you don't have an issue until about 215, 216. And I put the 225 up because I figured this might take a week or two for it to get up there. Now, if I get to this level, hit here, and I break that, and this flips, this can go parabolic. And there's a lot of people right now that are chasing that alpha because their stocks didn't work out the way that they thought. And look at the volume that's coming in here. It's just, this volume's just absolutely insane. It really is just, they're just crushing it on volume. So I hope that's clear as to how I think. It doesn't mean that that's how you have to think, but that's how I think, and that's how I tend to be profitable. I understand you want to look at the percentages. What percentage are you up? What are you making per stock? That's great. Everybody trades different. The question becomes, what are you doing? What is your plan going forward? One of the gentlemen wanted to sell here. Go for it. To me, when we were talking today, this was an ad. 192 is where we added, right? And that was pretty clear. Okay. Here's that 191.87 level. This breaks. And this is why it's so important, again, to let the stock tell you what it's going to do. If I just had these 2 bars, if you were looking at this, I don't want to do that. It's too far over. If I was looking at this chart, right, and I have this bar up and I have this, right, gravestone right here on the 15-minute, and I don't have any of this else to the right of me, right? Just see if I can cover that for a minute. Let me just see if I can do this. I don't know if that'll do that or not. Maybe I can change the color of this. So I go off on one of my tangents. Now, all they're going to do is, no, they're going to do it that way. Maybe I can do it this way. Property, maybe if I make it white, that'll do what I want it to do, and increase the opacity. So yeah, that'll work for the time being. So So you can't see, what I'm trying to do is hide that line, and that's just not working. So we're just going to get rid of it. So what my point is, where I'm going with this is, just imagine you have these two bars, okay? And you're sitting right on the support line. And you buy it and you've added to it. And you've just, as you've added to it, you've just watched it go up to here. And now you've watched it pull all the way back. And you're like, oh, I just lost my profit, right? Now you have this bar. Now you're here, okay? But you don't know what this bar is going to do. You think it's going to break this. Like if you're thinking, you're like, this is an evening star. It's going to break. Did it break? No, right? Was that a spot where I actually said, hey, we might be heading for a short-term top? 100%. Because if this executed, we could have came back down. We would have broken, right, this 192, which was this point right here, right? We would have fallen back through this, which is not what you would have wanted to see, and that would have left us exposed. So it would have been an area to get out of. Instead, what did it do? It just kept going. So let the price tell you what it's going to do. Stop telling things what they're going to do. Is that 7-minute tirade is what I'm getting at. And you will you'll be a lot happier, and you'll do better. Just let it do what it's going to do. Don't take it personally. Stock does not know you exist, does not know you own it. It's not out to get you. I know it feels like that sometimes, but it's really not. So I hope this was helpful. Everyone have a great weekend. And I will look out for the top 10 list tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, put on notifications, and look for the top 10 list tomorrow. There's some pretty good ones that are going to be on that one tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone.